We've come to a time and place in our society where we accept that the villains among us are leading us. We give them their impunity and we recognize them as our betters. This is about Peter Gabriel, who's a Don Trump associate and a vicious criminal and backstabber. The criminally insane things that Robert Fripp has done are legendary to his following, the way that they are to Donald Trump's following. But the victims are in horror and tortured, and they're being stalked and threatened in unbelievably evil, sadistic ways. When I wrote to Tim Menes, a cartoonist, I was in alexithymic amnesia, a very rare condition known only to Holocaust survivors. And indeed, Holocaust survivors had inflicted it on me. It's the inability of the tongue to handle the horror of describing what was done to them. And the door on the floor in a paper bag. It's where they had put me, dipping a rag in paint thinner and forcing me to use inhalants, taunting me, saying I'd never measure up because I wouldn't fight back. And I begged them to stop it. I was a picky eater. I had nothing to do with these people. I wouldn't touch carbonation or pizza because it was too strong. I was 10, 11 years old, and they attacked me blindside. It was like being shot. Peter Gabriel came swooping in to advocate for them, and I must bring this to the ping pong paddle that I left at the girl's house who was giving shelter to Larry Christ, who called my heart when it was poisoned a ticker, because there's a ticker magazine that covered Gaza before it broke out and called Life There Unlivable. And he had a Jewish girlfriend who called his new girlfriend his groupie. And when Larry Chris was living there, her very young, in his 40s brother abruptly dropped dead. And a girl from the JDL had given me a paddle, which I left there, um, not knowing that these issues were going to add up to a mystical quorum from the IDF, who was attacking the United States and continued to dominate us with the help of Jeffen and Nosferatu. And for me, my personal controller from the IDF was named Miles Kirshner, and Gail Burstyn, who appears on a Robert Fripp record. So the image of me being forced to use inhalants was an alexithymic image that I sent to Tim Mayer, and they, with a finger pointing, sniff it, queerbait, because they had brutally tortured me. A huge man with hun-like eyes tore my head off. And Zappa said that I was born dead because my father believed in public schools. It was Thawes Gordon said that the dinosaurs died because they didn't look after their children, while his buddy Larry Lederer cackled, they're talking about me, only it's in code. When I saw him the door on the floor in the paper bag, I was stunned because Dean Tierno had been shot, and it says acknowledgement to DT. And it was like a mystical formulation had grouped around me. But I asked my mother, what does canonize mean? Well, my mother never canonized the ground I walked upon. She always insulted me and said I was nothing and no good and worthless, and she was an alcoholic mother. I didn't know the word slag meant what it meant in Britain either. These mystical alignments continue. An attorney was hired by Peter Gabriel for Yoko Ono to go tunneling into my past. They found the most obscure things, and they converted them into evil. And they empowered any claim that a person made against me, even if they were farcical. Like I was sitting behind a guy in a bowling alley, and he was taking a perfect shot. And I was just a child. And I hit his pool racket, and he got the shot. And they were like, If you hadn't made that shot today, you would be dead because we found out about it. And these murderers, you want to give them the benefit of the doubt because they're talented and you presume they're victims. But what is Gail Burstyn doing on the cover of a record from 1979 of theirs? And why didn't they arrest her? Why did they come after me? She's the one who penned my name into a script that they claim was about John Lennon's murder. John Lennon wasn't murdered. This was all his idea. It traces back to a counterfeiting den at Fayum and a man named Gabriel D'Annunzio when the Hollywood studio system was at the birth of the era of the great dictators. They're trying to create media godhead, and they're using their money, their Elon Musk billions of dollars, to create a Holocaust happy grapevine where anybody who speaks out gets nattered and pismired by people like the crowhead Spoory Gooster. And they're criminally insane. They came up with this idea. This man, he's white crazy, was talking about AIDS before it happened and was threatening me with AIDS, surrounding my name with positive and negative thoughts, while these freak show from the Seattle Mariners come in and say, you have paranoid schizophrenia. I mean, they're gaslighting me for forensic assertive. These people have worked themselves into position. It's not a peanut principle. It's a penis principle. They work themselves into positions of domination over others and then let all hell break loose. They master their craft so they can violate all ethics and consideration. The idea isn't to have pride in your industry. It isn't to have pride in your ability. It's not pride in your ethics, in your calling, in your standards. It's pride in your power to destroy your standards, to break your ethics. That's them. Seattle, in one description, it's all of them. They're a flock of exterminators. They're criminally insane. They ain't going to me. They said I couldn't go to school because I would fail and was a troublemaker. I made straight A's when I escaped. They said I had paranoid schizophrenia, and they used ridiculous pretexts. Peter Gabriel wrote to me for 3 years. My mother was a witness. And they were saying I was hallucinating, delusions of grandeur, delusions of reference, to violate my right to report their travesty. And they Ripper murdered a girl over a penny right outside the clubhouse. They said this was worth money. This was worth money. And the penny is going to go to the positive. They refuse to pay me for my work. They refuse to pay me for my injuries, and they sit around scheming to do more dirty deals to me for Yoko Ono, who's behind all this. She's paying it. She's sponsoring with David Jeffen. She angled at me because my father was a radio room lieutenant in CBL 30. And Bush said, fine, you can make it like he's a liberal. Donald Trump's giving him to you as a sacrifice. And the Black Panthers worked with a man who was a hardcore pro-Nazi Green Party psychopath named Will Zell, who was surrounding my name with positive negative signs, talking about AIDS before it happened, working in Mount Desert Island. Duvall said, I know Bush started AIDS and I support him for it. He's a black man. Well, you don't have the right to pick and choose which black people you affirm and which ones you don't. They come around a black woman who I liked because she reminded me of the community college environment I was raised in. I would never hurt them. Died. They went downtown and shot a girl who was pregnant, who was white. And I can't say that because they'll go after and Teresa Spirit Day, Bobby Kennedy takes all the Kansas figure skaters and puts them into a blender over the Potomac, right? For mysterious reasons that have to do with the cerebral mysticism of the Palace of London, clearing the air for show business.